The Imperium always prevails in the end. This begs a question. Why is it so? Because Chaos Legions enroll in their ranks crazy lunatics, traitors and bloodthirsty mob? Because half of the Imperium's enemies are primitive and disorganized Xenos? Is it really the strict discipline, power of ironclad faith, hierarchy and war machine of the Imperium ensure success? Let's look at the making of an elite Astra Militarum force, Tempestus Scions. Tempestus Scions, or as they are known in Low Gothic, Stormtroopers, are the elite special forces units of the Astra Militarum and the Inquisition, but officially belong to a subdivision of the Adeptus Administratum known as the Militarum Tempestus. Trained from their youth by the Schola Progenium in the arts of war, Stormtroopers are perhaps the finest soldiers ever to serve in the Imperial Guard. Armed with their trademark hotshot laser guns and hell pistols, these soldiers take combat to the heart of the enemy with blinding speed and deadly precision. Their accuracy is aided by their highly protective carapace armor's integrated and distinctive Omnishield helm targeting system, equipped with the finest weapons and war gear in the Departmentum Unitorum's arsenal. Tempestus Scions are trained to carry out missions beyond the capabilities of the rank-and-file guardsmen. Deep strike assaults, reconnaissance, infiltration, sabotage, and airborne or orbital drop are just a few of the special operations missions with which Tempestus Scions and their equivalents in the Astra Militarum are regularly tasked. They are the very best that the Imperial Guard has to offer, each man a perfect specimen of health and moral purity, forged by experience and training not into a simple soldier, but into a one-man assault squad. Exceptionally skilled warriors descended from the very finest of the Imperium's noble bloodlines, both Tempestus Scions and Commissars obey and enforce the will of their superiors with merciless efficiency. The Imperium of Man holds 1,000,000 worlds and takes its tithe of military personnel from every single culture within its bounds. Despite this nearly inconceivable scale, the commands issued by the many Imperial authorities must be followed unflinchingly in order for the Imperium to endure. Hesitation would result in the swift collapse of the Emperor's realm. Tempestus Scions and Commissars are indoctrinated in the Imperial creed from youth, serving no culture but that of loyalty and the swift execution of their duties. It is they who possess the tenacity and resolve to undertake the toughest missions. It is they who get the job done. Tempestus Scions are disciplined elite special operations soldiers who fight without question or hesitation until their orders are fulfilled. Commissars are harsh yet inspiring leaders who ensure that every military objective is achieved, no matter the cost. Without the iron-willed resolution of both, the Imperium would be severely weakened in its darkest hour. As well as being the elite wing of the Astra Militarum, the Ordo Tempestus is the training ground for the Imperium's finest martial operatives outside of the legendary Adeptus Astartes. It works alongside the Schola Progenium, whose facilities are governed by the Ecclesiarchy, to provide key imperial institutions with the best recruits the galaxy can provide. The Schola Progenium takes a constant influx of war orphans from the embattled worlds of the Imperium of Man. These young individuals are officially known as Progena Novum. Mindscaped, schooled and trained to an almost inhuman degree, those who pass their trials of compliance and make it past selection day are then split off to serve in the different organs of the imperial hierarchy. The majority of these cadets are assigned to the Schola Tempestus, where they complete the grueling training necessary to become Tempestus Scions. The death rate amongst each year group of recruits is high, for the Schola Tempestus is as merciless as it is efficient. After 3 standard years of intense physical and mental conditioning, those who survive their training are assigned to a Scions regiment and join the Militarum Tempestus in earnest. From that point on, they are issued with the very best of equipment and resources the arsenals of the Ordo Tempestus can provide. In return, they are expected to give their lives in the service of the Imperium and to obey the orders of their superiors without question, no matter the horrors that confront them. Only those progena with the strongest minds and most unshakable resolve are given the chance to join the Officio Prefectus. Assuming they can prove themselves able to put aside such ephemeral concerns as humanity and compassion, come selection day, these prospective commissars are assigned to the Schola Prefectus. There they spend several standard years learning the finer points of the Imperial Creed, the Tactica Imperium, and even sections of the Codex Astartes. Once each of their spheres of knowledge is complete, they will be given the uniform and authority of a full member of the Officio Prefectus. Entrusted with a bolt pistol, the holy instrument of authority and vengeance presented to all of their brethren, and frequently given a power sword for close quarters fighting. The Commissar is ready to instill discipline and strike the fear of the Emperor into all those within the Ordo Tempestus. Female progenitor cadets, who show both physical aptitude and a burning faith in the Emperor, will be sent to the Adepta Sororitas via one of the bodies that govern their ancient orders, the Convent Sanctorum or the Convent Prioris. It is there that the sisters in training learn the secrets of the mechanical wonder that is power armor and how to wield the Holy Trinity of bolter, flamer and melter. Males who take the creed of the Emperor into their heart and evince an almost supernatural degree of faith will instead be requisitioned by the Adeptus Ministorum. Some of these find themselves seconded to Astra Militarum regiments, much like their Commissar contemporaries, whilst others bolster the Adepta Sororitas, go back into the Schola Progenium as drill abbots, or even lead armies of the faithful. To join the Adeptus Ministorum is an honour beyond measure. From amongst their ranks, the most devout leaders of the Imperium are born. Individuals of a more scholarly bent, as well as those whose minds are suited for the grinding tedium of clerical and logistical roles, will instead spend the rest of their lives in the Adeptus Terra. Each trained adept has not only an exceptional mind, but also a solid grasp of the military arts due to his time in the Schola Progenium. On those rare occasions that insurrection breaks out in a data slave compound or pedanticum complex, the prospective troublemakers may find themselves choking on their own heretical pamphlets, or with their brains dashed out by the bookish but unexpectedly violent overseer they had previously thought of as easy prey. The most secretive of all the organizations that recruit their agents from the Schola Progenium is the Emperor's Holy Inquisition. Powerful beyond measure, the Inquisition takes only those who excel physically, mentally, and spiritually. Though these prodigies join the ranks as acolytes under the province of a more senior inquisitor, the canniest and most capable of their number will become inquisitors in their own right. Theirs is the right to change the course of history, to send entire battle groups of the Astra Militarum and chapters of the Adeptus Astartes into the fires of war, and even to consign fully populated planets to oblivion should they deem it necessary. All who graduate from the Schola Progenium join a group of exceptional individuals who impose the Imperium's will on a hostile and uncaring galaxy. Their influence is spread across the stars, guiding the lesser orders of mankind by the will of the High Lords of Terror themselves. By the skills and disciplines of those taken from their families and reforged in the fires of adversity, the realm of mankind will stand or fall. Tempestus Scions and Commissars are remorseless and efficient killers, but these warriors are not born that way. They are forged within the Schola Progeniums, harsh training camps based on long-established imperial worlds. It is these ancient facilities that are responsible for taking the orphaned offspring of the best the Imperium has to offer and transforming them into ruthless soldiers. The Schola Progenium is designed to homogenize, break and rebuild the orphaned sons and daughters of the imperial elite. It transforms them from frightened children into loyal warriors ready to fight and die in the name of the Emperor, or into fearsome, iron-fisted authoritarians who keep the wheels of the Adeptus Terra in motion. In the aftermaths of the many atrocities so common in the 41st millennium, any newly created orphans who are of aristocratic blood are brought to the attention of the nearest Officio Prefectus officials, who are tasked with dealing with the aftershocks of a battle and salvaging anything still useful to the Imperium. Many a commissar has marched through the corpse-strewn walkways of a planetary governor's palace to discover a forlorn son or daughter who has been hiding, safe but alone, in some underground bunker. The commissar, having come from a similar background, will ensure that such a child does not go to waste. Quickly and efficiently he assigns the new-made orphan to a starship bound for the nearest Schola Progenium. It is even whispered that, when it is in the Imperium's best interests, the officio prefectus may steal a prospective new recruit. Sometimes a child, whose parents are still alive, may be judged to have shown remarkable qualities, and their presence on a backwater world may be considered an inefficient use of those skills when they could be put to better effect in an Imperial facility. The rumour has it that a commissar will ensure that such resources are allocated more efficiently, even if the protesting parents have to be removed from the equation in order to do so. Children arrive at the vast Schola Progeniums at a range of ages. Some come when they are as young as 6 Terran years, while others are as old as 12. Most inductees are orphaned in large groups, following a single planetary disaster, though occasionally individuals are thrown into larger groups if it is convenient. New recruits undergo a series of mental and physical examinations, but this is solely for the benefit of the facility. Should the cadet have been gleaned from a planet on the wrong end of a plague or spiritual rebellion, then the last thing the drill abbots would want is for that same corruption to break out within a confined, isolated complex and savage its young inmates. Cadets are divided by age to form training groups that will ultimately, in the case of the Militarum Tempestus, form the basis of their full battle regiments to maintain a sense of brotherhood. Group sizes can start off as large as several hundred at any one time, though those who would not make worthy servants of the Imperium are quickly weeded out and are not seen again by their classmates. Whereas the Astra Militarum is made up of soldiers from a huge number of different cultures, the progenia of the Schola Progenium do not permit cultural variety. Though they may arrive there from different worlds, they are quickly recast in the same imperial mould. As a result of this, they can be relied upon to put the orders of their superiors first and foremost before any other loyalties. So that the Schola Progenium becomes their sole reality, cadets are taught to forget their old existence. They are stripped of their former clothing and of any belongings they may have brought with them. They are issued only with simple black uniforms and standardized equipment and training gear, which they are expected to wear and use throughout their training. Recruits are forced to abandon their birth names and are instead provided with a new one chosen from a long list of legendary heroes of the Imperium. This is as much to remind them of the excellence to which they must aspire as it is to remove their identity. One exception to these traditional processes is when siblings arrive. They are not deprived of their familial connections, as these have been found to encourage greater competition as well as fostering stronger internal ties in the long term. Such uniformity is easier to accept for very young students than it is for those who have spent longer in their parent cultures. But mindscaping is always necessary to facilitate the commitment to the ways of the Schola Progenium. Sometimes, for habitual prejudices, this clarity of thought can be achieved by simple techniques, such as repetition of litanies for solar weeks on end. However, at some point every cadet is strapped down to an iron chair known as a correction throne. Needles are then inserted through the rear of the cadet's skull, and their heads are flooded with dirus, a neurochemical fluid that cleanses their synapses, wiping away old memories and paving the way for new information. It is an unfortunate and little discussed fact that the Imperium possesses ever-dwindling stocks of dirus, and it is increasingly being diluted with more dubious substances. While cadets endure such treatment, autovox servo skulls relay righteous speeches, war cries, or simply inspiring quotes from ecclesiastical texts to properly and irrevocably infuse them with the wonder of their new creed. Sadly, even the Schola Progenium's mindscaping techniques are not infallible. Dreams and visions from previous existences will haunt some recruits for the rest of their lives. A scion may never fully rid himself of the nightmarish visions that linger from his homeworld or the trauma of the death of his parents. As with all such matters, the Schola Progenium's methodology goes unquestioned. However, it is always a concern when a cadet shows too strong an unwillingness to properly conform. As a reward for their independence, they are often released into the training grounds only to be hunted down by their former comrades. This serves as much to bond the remaining cadets as it does to punish individuality. If a cadet publicly disobeys orders, they will meet a spectacular and very public end, courtesy of a drill abbot's great hammer. What little remains of their spine is coiled within a glass box and mounted within the dormitory to serve as a warning to others. This is not at the extreme end of remedial punishments. In the Schola Progenium facility on Brelex, the products of one incident remain forever enshrined. Due to a faulty batch of mindscaping chemicals, a whole year group revolted against the dictates of their masters. The seething Abbot Prime ordered the Officio Prefectus to crush the rebellion. While still alive, the mutinous cadets were meshed with mortar and used to line the Schola's ferrocrete walls. To this day, their bones jut out of long corridors, grasping for freedom, as a warning of the consequences of insubordination. Schola Progenium training may be considered a drawn-out form of torture. Indeed, injured limbs or broken minds are hardly uncommon. Cadets undergo basic physical drills in heavy carapace armor, quickly tiring them out as they scale walls or squeeze under razor wire. A cuff from the drill abbot's gauntleted hand and the sight of his great hammer is usually enough to encourage a lethargic cadet to try harder. Military exercises with live ammunition are conducted in the harsh landscape surrounding a Schola Progenium or on nearby moons. Cadets are often expected to endure solar days in the wilderness with little food or instruction and limited weaponry with which to combat whatever violent fauna roams the planet. Yet with each roaming day, cadets improve in their performance. Their speed and endurance increase. They scale walls previously thought impossible to overcome, and it becomes obvious to even a novice drill abbot that true warriors are being forged. It is a strong belief within the Schola Progenium that from the hottest of fires, the strongest bonds of brotherhood are born. Whatever the technique, this tutelage serves to better divine what path a cadet is suited for, as well as preparing them for the brutalities of the 41st millennium. Indeed, the training regimen within the Schola Progenium exists not just to create highly skilled combatants. Amidst the trials and challenges, the drill abbot will constantly assess and reassess as to who will make an excellent Tempestus Scion, an excellent commissar, or who would be better suited within the Adeptus Terra. However, some scholars use more esoteric methods of selection. For example, the Abbot Prime of the Schola Progenium facility on Sanctus Omega is a known reader of the Emperor's Tarot and uses the mystical cards to steer his judgment or decide upon a cadet's path. Technically, no one role is considered more prestigious than another, though commissars are generally held to be the most redoubtable of the Schola's trainees. Each graduate has a highly specific role within the Imperium at large, and such skills need to be discerned well in advance of the trials of compliance, the most important stage of a cadet's time at the Schola Progenium. Each Schola Progenium employs one or more challenges to separate those who will become commissars from those who will join the Militarum Tempestus. These tests take diverse forms, but the primary purpose of all such trials of compliance is to highlight those cadets who are best committed to obeying orders in adversity and test how they process those commands. Of course, a percentage of the supplicants fail in their allotted task. Many end up as equerries or thralls of the Schola Progenium. Some of these disappointments may work through their sentences as menials and eventually be permitted to join the regular Astra Militarum. Ever eager to prove their worth, these few may yet become imperial soldiers. For potential Tempestus Scions, trials of compliance may involve live-fire exercises in the hallucinarium. In endless labyrinths, cadets are constantly exposed to strange visions and false suggestions. Yet the prospective initiates are expected to follow the correct orders without hesitation, no matter how strange those orders may be, and no matter how monstrous the entities they come up against. There are timed physical tests too, such as scaling the grand facade of the facility whilst constantly chanting that particular Schola Progenium's motto. Should the candidate's incantations slip out of sync from the metronomic tempo of the servo skull hovering nearby, the cadet may soon have gunfire to contend with, in addition to the high walls. For potential commissars, the trials of compliance usually take even more esoteric forms. Without knowing it is a test, a cadet may be commanded to locate one of his closest colleagues, a comrade with whom he has shared the trials and tribulations of the Schola Progenium over many years, and shoot them through the head. Such a callous execution order serves a dual purpose, as it proves that the cadet commissar can not only follow imperial orders, but that he or she will have no problem killing stubborn officers when in the heat of battle. However, the Schola Progenium recognizes the danger posed by a highly trained candidate who shows the promise of a commissar, but who cannot follow such an order. Prospective commissars who fail this trial will end up being victim to the same challenge issued to another candidate or released as quarry for a group of potential scions. The few brave adepts within the Adeptus Ministorum who suggest that all of this is a waste of good talent are reminded that these trials are essential to wean out the truly remorseless from those haunted by doubt. Besides, there are always thousands more orphans delivered into their hands each standard year. Such losses are hardly of import. After successful cadets have survived their various trials of compliance, the drill abbots will allocate them their path in an event known as Selection Day. It is then that the truly hard challenges begin. Selection days in the Schola Progenium mark the point at which a cadet is assigned their destiny. Cavernous void ships descend into planetary orbit, ready to export progeny to their new roles. From dawn to dusk, amidst the slow incantation of ancient litanies and clouds of incense, cadets are divided according to their selected path. A good many discover that they are to head into the ranks of the Adeptus Terra. Those young women who show not only fine military skills, but strong signs of faith, are prepared to journey to training convents of the Adepta Sororitas' Orders Militant, while others may join the Adeptus Arbites. The most talented warriors are chosen for the Militarum Tempestus and Officio Prefectus. Each group is assigned to a starship and consequently dispatched to the appropriate Schola Tempestus or Schola Prefectus for more advanced training in their chosen discipline. The Schola Progenium exists to adopt children whose parents died in the Emperor's service and train them to become the bedrock of the Imperium's defense and governance. The Schola's graduates are scattered across Imperial society. The Ecclesiarchy, the Administratum, Adeptus Arbits, Commissariat, Adeptus Sororitas, or even the Inquisition. However, for those who prove to be particularly martial and aggressive, the Schola reserves its most difficult and dangerous training. This is the instruction provided to the famous Astra Militarum and Inquisitorial Tempestus Scions. Stormtrooper training begins immediately after the Schola Progenium's primary educational course, but does not supplant it. After all, potential Tempestus Scions are expected to be more than simply warriors. Each is expected to be well-schooled in basic education and imperial lore and history, and unwaveringly loyal to the God Emperor, something a Schola education works diligently to impart. Although the vast majority of stormtroopers are progena, orphans trained at the Schola Progenium, at times a senior official of the Imperium, such as an Inquisitor, uses their authority to have an adult individual inducted into the Tempestus Scions training course of the Schola Progenium. In these situations, the Schola Progenium's drill. Abbots make no distinction between a barely teenage new recruit and a grizzled veteran with years of service, and any complaints those veterans may have are quickly crushed under the weight of training. When, or if, those recruits emerge as full stormtroopers, they are often removed from their squad and assigned to serve their patron Inquisitor as one of his acolytes instead, to be selected to become a Tempestus Scion. In this manner happens but rarely, usually after some act of outstanding courage and dedication. The candidate must show developed martial skills, a strong mind resistant to terror and panic, and a deep faith in the Imperial Creed. Naturally, the sponsoring Inquisitor has their own, often obscure, agenda for sponsoring an acolyte into this training as well. Stormtroopers make excellent throne agents, often serving as an Inquisitor's bodyguard in extremely dangerous situations, and they are highly valued for their martial training and military knowledge. Often, such an unusual candidate is examined carefully by the drill abbot instructors before being declared fit to train with the Tempestus Scion progenitor. Rigorous study with the Inquisition is also required for the candidate in order to acquire the same knowledge already learnt by the other progenitor. This often includes a deep understanding of the Tactica Imperialis, advanced stealth techniques, and a method to ensure basic and successful communion with the machine spirits of their special war gear, such as digital targeters and grav chutes. In most cases, the proper stormtrooper progenitor never recognize the qualities of the outsider candidate and prefer to remain aloof. The inquisitorial candidate, after all, has entered the training from the sponsorship of a higher power, and many of the other progenitor will doubt his own personal qualifications for such an honor. Traditionally, the drill abbots stand apart from the social aspects of their charges and provide the candidate with no more and no less instruction than that given to any other progenitor. Many a grizzled Imperial veteran may find his pride difficult to swallow when treated no differently than a raw and untested recruit by the drill abbots. However, swallow it they must if they are to complete their training and fulfill the expectations of their sponsor. Should the candidate survive the grueling regime of harsh training, he is now an Imperial Tempestus Scion. However, candidates sponsored by the Inquisition are not meant to join a proper stormtrooper unit, nor to deploy with the Astra Militarum. Instead, these stormtroopers, with their training complete, are taken by their sponsor to serve a higher purpose, a permanent place on an Inquisitor's retinue of acolytes and throne agents. As a result of all mentioned before, Tempestus Scions are cold, proficient killers whose deadly firepower reduces foes to smouldering heaps of corpses. Trained in the Schola Progenium, these men commit to a rigorous program of physical and mental indoctrination that raises them to the peak of human conditioning. Loyal to the Emperor above all else, Tempestus Scions provide the Imperial High Command with a corps of flexible, nigh-incorruptible soldiers. Deployed sparingly, they can be depended upon to complete any mission, no matter how deadly. Racing into battle aboard armoured transports or plummeting down on grav chutes, the Scions are the sharp edge of the Imperial Guard war machine. Each squad of Tempestus Scions consists of veteran warriors, trained and equipped to the highest standard, protected by rigid armour plate and reinforced ceramite plates. Scions wield a sophisticated range of high-powered weapons that perfectly complement their shock assault role, and their discipline is such that they can direct their deadly firepower to absolute optimum effect. Unlike the guardsmen of the Astra Militarum, Scions endure a brutally uncompromising training regime, ensuring that only the most skilled and resolute amongst them ever see battle. The Tempestus Scions form multiple regiments within the Militarum Tempestus, and each is a permanent unit, receiving a constant influx of new recruits to keep it up to full strength. By virtue of its members having been recruited from the orphaned progenitor of the Schola Progenium, each regiment is made up of soldiers originally hailing from worlds across the Imperium of man. With up to 10,000 men under arms at any one time, each regiment is also larger than most other Imperial Guard regiments raised from a single world. However, this huge force does not fight in a single place. Individual companies or battalions are instead sent to different war zones, and from there, individual stormtrooper squads are spread among the other Astra Militarum regiments in each war zone as required. The Tempestus Scion unit assigned to a war zone provides a corps of elite squads which are entrusted to carry out important missions requiring more training and initiative than are possessed by the average Imperial Guardsman. Stormtrooper squads, led by a non-commissioned officer known as a Tempestus, are effective at spearheading assaults into heavily fortified positions, infiltrating behind enemy lines and sowing confusion and panic. They are often dropped into the thick of combat from Valkyrie assault carriers, guns blazing before they even touch the ground. In some rare instances, several squads of stormtroopers will gather for a mission which is intended to be an annihilation of a target, rather than a taken hold. This task force is referred to as a Tempestus Scion Strike Force. Tempestus Scion recruits are chosen from the progenitor of the Schola Progenium, where they have been raised and educated and moulded into loyal and dedicated servants of the Emperor of mankind. They are then taught to use superior battle tactics and the use of more advanced equipment than the average guardsman. The regiments to which the Tempestus Scion squads are attached often regard the inimitably dedicated and better-equipped stormtroopers with a certain amount of animosity, referring to them by such names as Glory Boys and Big Toy Soldiers. Yet this rancor is nothing to the Scions themselves. Trained in covert operations and rapid insertion strike tactics, they go to battle confident that their every deed is for the good of the Imperium, carrying out their orders with merciless and uncompromising pragmatism. Regardless of the animosity or opinions of the average guardsman, the effectiveness of stormtroopers cannot be disputed, and even the most embittered guardsman thanks the God Emperor when a stormtrooper squad appears to turn the tide of battle and save the day. Several types of Imperial Guard Militarum regiments commonly employ Tempestus Scions as part of their standard order of battle, including the Armageddon Steel Legion, Cadian Shock Troops employ Cadian Kazakin, Death Corps of Krieg, Harakoni Warhawks, Terrax Guard, Tempestus Primes. Each Militarum Tempestus platoon is led into battle by a grizzled officer known as a Tempestus Prime. Such warriors are promoted on battlefield record alone, their accolades earned through courage and unshakable discipline in the line of fire. The tactics they employ as a commander are the product of the countless missions they have undertaken as a Scion, and as such they have an intrinsic understanding of the capabilities of their soldiers. Able to operate on their own initiative in a way entirely alien to the majority of the Astra Militarum, these men lead their progenium brethren into battle with merciless efficiency. Each Tempestus command squad is comprised of the very best Scions in the regiment. A Tempestus command squad will often shadow a Tempestus Prime on an operation, shielding them against incoming fire while answering with salvos of their own. Vox operators relay the Tempestus Prime's commands across the Vox net, while medics patch up and inject stimulant concoctions into downed soldiers so that they can continue to fight. Some Tempestus command squads also carry their platoon's banner into battle, waving its colours in proud defiance as they lead the charge against the enemy. Tempestus Scions can be divided roughly into 5 different categories, or functionally equivalent units: Grenadiers, Standard Stormtroopers, Inquisitorial Stormtroopers, Catechin Devils, and Cadian Kazakin. Unlike standard Stormtroopers, Grenadiers are raised from the toughest and most skilled members of an already existing Imperial Guard regiment. This practice is normally found on highly martial worlds such as Cadia or Krieg. Grenadiers are selected while they are still in the youth armies of the local planetary defense forces or during their Imperial Guard basic training, and are enrolled in special academies where they receive additional training. They are utterly dedicated to the preservation of the Imperium and follow an ethos of duty and honor that is both impressive and intimidating. Unlike standard Stormtroopers, who are looked upon with disdain by their fellow guardsmen, Grenadiers are looked up to and seen as a model to follow and emulate, as Grenadiers are from the same world as the rest of the regiment. Grenadiers are often known by different names depending upon the world they hail from, such as the Cadian Kazakin, who are considered both a type of Stormtrooper and the Cadian equivalent of Grenadiers. Stormtroopers are the closest equivalent the Astra Militarum possess to elite special forces. They act as shock troopers and commandos, conducting raids behind enemy lines and acting as the spearhead for later offensive assaults. Stormtroopers are recruited from the orphaned sons of Imperial officials and military officers from all over the galaxy, such as planetary governors or high-ranking members of the Astra Militarum or Imperial Navy. Raised within a schola progenium under the care of the ecclesiarchy, they live a demanding life of prayer, study and physical exercise. This unremitting and punishing training regime hones their minds, bodies and skills to the very peak of human perfection. These potential stormtrooper candidates are notable for their outstanding skills in the arts of war, but lack the iron personalities and charisma that would earmark them to become an Imperial Commissar or Imperial Guard officer, or the affinity for space warfare that would make them an Imperial Navy officer. They are usually not from the same regiment or homeworld as those they serve with. Due to this origin, their superior war gear and training, they are often called glory boys or big toy soldiers by the average guardsman, who are jealous of their skill and access to specialized gear. Wearing highly protective carapace armor and armed with armor-piercing hellguns, a single squad of stormtroopers can be more dangerous than an entire company of regular guardsmen. The Inquisition maintains a number of fortresses throughout the galaxy, both secret and known to the inhabitants of the Imperium. Inquisitorial stormtroopers are used by the Inquisition to guard their fortresses and the black ships as they make their purity runs across the Imperium's sectors, as well as to augment an individual Inquisitor's personal forces with reliable and effective soldiers. Many stormtroopers of particular skill are chosen to become an Inquisitor's throne agents. Inquisitorial stormtroopers are selected from families with a record of unwavering faith in the Emperor and prior duty to the Inquisition. They are trained and equipped in a manner similar to standard Militarum Tempestus stormtroopers, albeit lacking the rapid insertion and infiltration skills, as they are not expected to undertake such types of missions. Such activities are more often carried out for the Inquisition by the Officio Assassinorum. Catachan jungle fighters regiments of the Astra Militarum include squads of warriors exceptional even by the exacting standards of their birth world. These seasoned jungle fighters are deadly in close combat and also carry a versatile array of ranged weapons. In Catachan regiments, these troops are called Catachan Devils, in reference to their famous kill knives and the voracious predators of their world whose fierceness they emulate in combat. These Special Forces squads consist of 1 veteran sergeant and between 4 and 9 Catachan Devil guardsmen. Some squads may even include a veteran Catachan officer. The most famous of these deadly warriors is Sly Marbo, a man renowned as the one-man army. Catachan are the elite of the Cadian shock troops regiments and part of the Imperial Guard structure, formerly dedicated to the security of the fortress world of Cadia. Their name comes from the title of the heavily defended fortress cities of Cadia, which were called Casas in the Cadian dialect of Low Gothic. Thus, the name of these units means the city kin. These are the elite of the already superior Cadian planetary defense forces, and are recruited while still serving as White Shields or recruits in the Cadian armed forces into the Astra Militarum. Their training is comparable, if not better than, that of standard Militarum Tempestus stormtroopers, of which they are the Cadian equivalent, and they are utterly dedicated to the preservation of Cadia, whereas stormtroopers are indoctrinated to dedicate themselves to the defense of the entire Imperium. Kazakin are highly trained in the use of numerous weapons, and wear the more advanced carapace armor like standard stormtroopers. They maintain a strict ethos of duty and honor and a devotion to the Emperor that is impressive for members of the Astra Militarum. Whereas the standard stormtrooper is looked down upon in envy by most Imperial Guardsmen of the rank and file, the standard Kazakin is looked up to with favor and respect by the other members of the Cadian shock trooper regiments. The Kazakin were the ultimate defenders of Cadia from the enemies of the Imperium, such as the ever-present forces of chaos, and they led the charge in defense of Cadia, particularly during the early days of Abaddon, the despoiler's 13th Black Crusade in 999. M41 when Cadia was invaded outright by the forces of chaos. To be a Kazakin was to hold a position of honor in Cadian society, and all Cadians recognized this truth, even after the destruction of their beloved homeworld. Used to enforce execution warrants or when extreme prejudice is required, kill squads are comprised of the special operations units of planetary defense forces, and represent some of the most dangerous formations that can exist within the organization of planetary enforcers. Though not true Tempestus Scions, as they serve a planetary government and not the Imperium directly, the troops that comprise kill squads are often trained to the same elite level as most standard stormtroopers, particularly on wealthy and technologically advanced Imperial planets. On some worlds where the rule of the planetary governor is dictatorial and harsh, kill squad troopers are the hated embodiments of their tyranny. The regiments of the Militarum Tempestus Scions depend upon their all-purpose Taurox primes to deliver the target fury of the Imperium across all manner of hazardous war zones and through almost impossible conditions. Given the vehicle's long-standing service with the Scions, many Taurox primes have become notable for supporting the elite warriors during remarkable victories. They are often painted in each regiment's colours and given colourful names. The Valkyrie assault carrier and the forces of the Militarum Tempestus are an almost perfect match. the training and mission indoctrination of the Scions working hand in fist with the speed, versatility and firepower of the Valkyrie gunship. During combat operations, a Tempestus force will be granted dispensation to repaint these aircraft in the colours of their regiment. An Imperial Tempestus Scion of unknown regiment, arrayed in his carapace armour, slate monitron, omnishield helm, and wielding a flamer. The war gear used by the Tempestus Scions is far superior to the rugged, utilitarian weaponry of the Astra Militarum. Specialist training and maintenance is required by the Departamento Munitorum for each piece of kit. A Schola Tempestus cadet must pass a series of tests and earn the appropriate honours before even being allowed to use a hotshot lasgun in battlefield conditions. Each time a weapon or piece of war gear is mastered, the icon of that equipment is branded into his chest as a permanent sign of competence. Once the full suite of weaponry and war gear has been earned, a Tempestus Scion is able to wage war for solar weeks at a time without resupply in a wide variety of hostile battlefield conditions. Tempestus Scion's carapace armour is generally a sign of status and is mostly worn by Imperial officers and agents. Made from moulded plates of armourplace, ceramite or other strong, light but highly resistant materials, it can cover the entire body or just selected regions of the body depending on the desired level of protection. Tempestus Scions, for example, wear full-body suits of carapace armour, including an omnishield helm with a built-in targeting and imaging array, while most rank-and-file Astra Militarum soldiers are lucky to gain access to just a simple chest plate of flak armour to wear over more comfortable mesh or flak-weave suits. Some bodysuits have slots designed for simple carapace plates to be inserted in, so that the overall suits can be rapidly configured for as much or as little protection as desired. Damaged plates can in this way be more easily replaced without requiring the purchase of an entire new suit. Omnishield Helm is a special helmet used by Imperial Tempestus Scions. In hostile environments, a Tempestus regiment will don all-enclosing Omnishield helms, their resp masks proof against everything from industrial pollution to fully ignited atmospheres. When sealed, they allow Tempestus Scions to operate even in airless vacuums for limited periods of time. The multispectral oculum that attaches via suction to the wearer's eye sockets allow him to see in low light and occluded conditions with relative ease. Slate monitron Dextera configuration is the data slate worn upon the armoured forearm gauntlet of the typical Tempestus Scion, allows him instant access to his Tempesta Prime's latest command runes and war psalms. It also monitors vital signs, showing the pulse rate and health matrix of the wearer at all times so that his officer can instantly assess his condition. It was the slate monitron that led to the old guardsman jibe that Tempestus Scions are dead inside, for upon completion of their training their hearts are locked in an iron box mounted on their sleeve. A microbead or comm bead is a short-range radio wave communication device worn in the ear, good for communications out to about 1 kilometre, depending on weather conditions and the intervening terrain. Each fits discreetly in the ear, with higher craftsmanship models nearly undetectable in casual inspection. A simple breathing mask that covers the nose and mouth or entire face. These offer much better protection than filtration plugs and are used by stormtroopers in toxic environments or during attacks by chemical or even biological weapons. Hotshot lasgun Lucius Patton, sometimes also known as hellguns, hotshot weapons are almost exclusively used by high-ranking Imperial officers and elite forces who favour the higher power provided by these weapons over the greater rate of fire, but poorer penetration of the Astra Militarum's standard-issue laser weapons. While hellguns are rarely seen employed in the Imperial Guard outside of the elite Tempestus Scion units, hell pistols can be seen in use among many members of the Guard's officer corps, and among agents of the Inquisition, where their greater power often means the difference between life and death. Hotshot lasgun Riza Patton. Manufactured in the finest incantoriums that the Forge world of Riza can provide, this lasgun does not use a clip-like power pack as with those of the Imperial Guard, but instead a hyper-yield power array worn as a backpack rig. By adjusting this rig, the hotshot lasgun can be calibrated to emit bursts of such penetrative power they can punch straight through ceramite. At its maximum capacity, the lasgun operates in the 60 megajoule range and holds enough potential energy that it is warm to the touch. Charge packs are powerful batteries used almost exclusively by Imperial laser weapons. The cost of a charge pack varies depending on the class of the weapon. In all cases, it provides shots equal to the weapon's full clip value. The combat knife is the ubiquitous backup weapon for warriors all across the Imperium, be they lowly hive scum or the elite soldiers of a planetary governor. Some, such as the Catacomb fighting knife, are designed for a specific purpose, whilst others are more generic in nature. Imperial Infantryman's Uplifting Primer is a standard-issue Imperial text that covers a vast variety of topics. This book is possessed by all members of the Imperial Guard as part of their standard-issue equipment. The primer is a basic guide that details everything a guardsman needs to know: principles and regulations of the Imperial Guard, issued arms, attire, apparatus and equipment, basic battlefield policy and Imperial Guard organization and structure, elementary battlefield medical instructions, and a detailed guide on the foes of the Imperium. No guardsman should ever be found without possession of a copy of the Uplifting Primer, for the punishment is severe. The primer is a basic guide to life in the Imperial Guard and the tactics employed by its regiments. Even elite Imperial troops like stormtroopers oftentimes still rely on its advice. Riser pattern hotshot volley gun is considered by many Tempestus primes to be the ultimate weapon deployed by the Militarum Tempestus. The hotshot volley gun is a truly fearsome firearm. Incorporating penitent-class heat-sink arrays, these weapons can maintain a punishing rate of high-powered laser fire. Monoscope can be used to project a beam of light, but is primarily intended as a visual uploader. Panning left and right as the Tempestus Scion goes about the prosecution of war, each monoscope can be tapped into by any Tempestus or Tempestus Prime who wishes to see what his subordinate is witnessing. The act of covering up a monoscope's lens, whether accidentally or by design, is punishable by a full solar day's electro-whipping and a number of days without rations at the commanding officer's discretion. Clarion Vox array of the Astra Militarum are often known as ghost boxes, for with the white noise and interference patterns of battle raging all around it, it's difficult to coax more than a whisper from their speakers. Not so the Clarion Vox array of the Militarum Tempestus, a triumph of audio military hardware that overrides its designated airwaves with the crystal-clear and perfectly enunciated commands of the Tempesters leading each detachment. Martyr's Gift Field Service Medikit is a cut above anything issued to the Astra Militarum. Loaded with combat stims, auto-cauterizing thermic gel, and single-use disposable bionics, this medikit is intended to ensure that wounded Scions get back into the fight with the minimum of fuss. Long-term healing is of little interest to Tempestus Scions in the heat of battle. Providing a wounded warrior can be patched and propped sufficiently to complete his duty, his eventual fate matters not. The Martyr's Gift even features a belt of subcutaneous frag charges that can be used to booby-trap a terminally wounded Scion's body. Thus, even in death, the Tempestus Scions strike back against the enemy that slew them. There are quite a few notable Tempestus Scions in the history of the Force. Tempestus Prime Salem Whitlock is the epitome of a Schola Progenium officer bold, courageous and utterly dedicated to the Imperium. Whitlock's personal honours and roll of victories would put most career officers to shame, and the respect he instills in his men is the envy of any commissar. The Tempestus Prime commands none other than the 50th Capic Eagles, the toughest, most decorated company of Tempestus Scions this side of Segmentum Solar. Though they number barely a single company, under Whitlock's command they are worth more than a regiment of regular guardsmen, and they know it. If Whitlock and the Capic Eagles have any flaw at all, it is their assumption that their orders will be obeyed to the letter regardless of whom they are delivered to. Orphaned at the age of 2, Salem Whitlock was raised by the Schola Progenium on the shrine world of Frel. During his youth, his determination, devout loyalty and natural leadership marked him out as officer material, and for many years it was believed he was destined to join the commissariat. However, as a Tempestus Scion cadet, Whitlock displayed an acumen for tactics that his drill abbots felt more suited to Militarum Tempestus command. His subsequent advance through the ranks of the Militarum Tempestus has been nothing short of meteoric. As a Tempester, Whitlock led the drop assault that brought the decade-long siege of Fortress Hellstar to a bloody end. His squad swept through the stronghold with ruthless efficiency, gunning down every cultist inside in less than 80 minutes. As a Tempester Prime, Whitlock orchestrated the strikes that crippled an Elder war host at Telvar Prime. He then personally led the assault against the Xenos Witch Commander, who he slew while simultaneously redeploying his Valkyries and Vendettas to cut off the warhost's line of retreat, resulting in a bitter aerial duel that the Imperial Guard won through attrition and sheer determination. There are few Imperial Guard officers who can coordinate the actions of an entire company as fluently as Tempester Prime Whitlock. Even fewer can do so in the thick of the fight, where Whitlock can be seen barking orders while snapping off shots with his bolt pistol. Whitlock insists on leading from the front, facing the same dangers as his men and assessing the battlefield firsthand. It is this selfless bravery that inspires the Capik Eagles to victory, the same quality that saw them at the front when the fate of Alaric Prime hung in the balance. Militarum Tempestus is a reliable and remarkable force. However, their methods, like many things in the Imperium, raise questions. Hordes of chaos cultists are labelled as clueless brainwashed masses, and yet the Imperium literally tries to erase its elite soldiers' memory using volatile chemicals, the definition of brainwashing. The enemy's army is supposed to consist of crazed fanatics, and yet the slightest hint of insubordination or heresy is met with an instant execution. The Imperium claims to serve mankind and protect it, yet employs such harsh and inhumane methods of recruitment and training that barely differ from other brutal and bloodthirsty Xenos. Children are kidnapped, their stubborn parents, if needed, executed, and then many young soldiers do not even live to see the actual battlefield. Countless people are being cut and wounded by this system. No wonder many turn to heresy and betray the Imperium for the slightest reward. Only those who truly comprehend the value of a necessary sacrifice can endure the hardships on their path of serving mankind.